Hello, I wanted to give an overview of the product I've been working on. It's called Hype.io. That's a working title. I may change it. But for right now, if you wanted to check out the public pages, there's the URL. This is a development environment, so I have it locked down. You won't be able to log in, but I'll demo the capabilities now. If you go here, don't put too much into the pricing and blog entries. These are drafts, they're works in progress. One thing I do want to show though is here on this FAQs page, and that's this animated set of numbered blocks here. Just want to give an example of the colors and the shading and the fancier kind of UIs that'll be available. But really, I want to show this because it's a web component, and web components play a big part in Hype. So, not to get too nerdy too quick, but if we inspect the code, you can see down here this HYPX Boinger tag. If you were to copy paste this into your web page, you'd have that functionality right there. Um, so it's kind of a contrived and useless sort of functionality, but survey hosting is built with web components as well. So I just want to demonstrate that. So you think about the industry today, all the redirect hops. Each one of those hops is slows down the experience for the user. It's a point of potential failure. It's an entry point for potential fraud. There's usually a cost there because you have another partner involved who's going to take a slice of whatever the researcher is going to pay for a respondent's answer. So if you wanted to avoid all that, you could just embed a hype survey in the source. And since this hype product is going to be equivalent or better as far as the quality and security controls it can provide, um, I think it could be a better solution to what's out there today. But let's log on in. So one thing that's a little bit different is I don't want to use a username or password. I don't want to require users to have another username or password. They already have a Google account or a Facebook or a LinkedIn, so why not just let them log in with that? Also for the targeting perspective, so you'll use this to log in to make surveys. You'll also use this to log in to take surveys. One thing I want to do is when people come in to take surveys, I want to at least have the option. I'd like to force it, but we'll probably have it as an option to force them to log in with their social provider. And there's one of the many reasons for that is I could pull in targeting info. So I ask a whole bunch of screener questions about employment if they could just log in with LinkedIn and I could pull in that data automatically. It also provides a way to compare what's on their LinkedIn account with what they say in screener questions. So you'll be able to, in your final results, see the profile data from LinkedIn, see what they answered as far as any screener questions if they were asked them, and it's an extra quality check on the person coming in. So if I were to log in with LinkedIn, I could come in. Right now, all the functionality is in the same app and available to everyone that logs in. So you could log in and be a maker, make surveys, log in and be a taker, take surveys, place and promoter I'll talk about later. But if I were to log in here as a taker, come to my opportunities, I can see the surveys that are available for me, to me, rather. Also, one thing that's important now with GDPR and other compliances is to be able to track all the data that's collected. So every data point, every time you answer a question, that stuff's all saved and can be retrieved and made visible to people taking surveys. I'm going to log out and back in with my, oh, real quick. These top ones up top, the light gray are the ones that I've got support for. These middle gray are the ones I'm going to be adding support for. These darker grays are ones I don't think need to be at the front of the list, but maybe options. Think about Strava, athletes, think about Spotify, music lovers, um, Epic Games, game players, Discord, all different sorts of things going on Discord. Twitter, you know what's happening on Twitter. All these different socials have different, represent different. I don't know, you know the word. I'm struggling to find the word, but if I'm targeting B2B business professionals, I'll go to LinkedIn. If I need game players, I'll go to Epic Games, and I'll be able to pull in that profile of that person. So maybe I want a game player who has been on Epic Games for a long time, plays a certain number of games. I'm not too familiar with what targeting they provide, but that is the benefit of using this mode to have people log in. I'd like to force social login for every person coming in to take a survey. I don't know if that's going to fly, but there's a few good reasons in addition to profiling for doing that. But anyways, let me come into GitHub and let me show the making of surveys. Sample survey. So one of the limitations that I've seen in existing survey programming tools is the rigidity of them. You tend to pick from a template, enter your question text, enter your set of answers, and you're bound by what they allow you to do. And so I'm going to do that too. I'll build out some templates, but I want to also support a more freeform thing. I wanted to be able to format easily. I'm using something called Markdown to make it easy for anybody to format their pages. Anything you would see on a web page, bullet lists, images, you could do with Markdown. And I wanted to have the same Markdown functionality to add questions and any number of questions you want on a page. So you could see with these other bits of Markdown here, the hash for headers, the asterisks for bold or italic text. Similar thing that I've extended Markdown with to add different types of questions. So you'd start with a question mark, you'd give it the name of the question, and then over here on the rendering side, so this is on the left, the editing side. Over here on the right, it's going to be real-time rendering of what you're working on. So I've got, the common types of question types supported. Text, open-end, selects, multi-selects, checkboxes. Discrete choice is the one more advanced type of question that I've added, but I'll be adding more like max, diff, conjoint, those kinds of things. And of course the Boinger, if you need to have a Boinger. What's going to be here is if you need to upload assets, images, audio, blocks of text, make it easy to host that stuff here on Hype. This page flow, I haven't started on this yet, but I know how it's going to work. And this is where you'll define the flow logic, the skip logic through your survey. What I want to show you is the targeting. So if you're going to create a survey, the first thing you do is define your number of completes, points per complete you're going to pay out, when your target date is. The dupe logic, I think I'm doing a bit better with the dupe than most of the dupe solutions that I've seen out there. So, I'm not populating the surveys or accounts lists yet, but you'll be able to duplicate any number of surveys within your account or any number of external accounts. Instead of just having one ID that you're using as a dedupe marker, I'm supporting multiple markers, and this list is going to grow. But every time somebody starts a survey, every time somebody completes, every time they just see a survey opportunity, have an impression of it, a record is caught of that. And every time they start, records are created with the digital fingerprint, separate records, the IP address, the user ID. So when you log in with a social, there's an ID there. If you're coming in from an external sourcing provider, there's an ID there. And so it's kind of like a sprawl approach to dedupe. Anyways, it's a deeper subject. Social providers. So you should be able to select which social providers you'll allow sample from. So if you are doing a business study, only allow LinkedIn, right? If you're only going after software engineers, only use GitHub. And so for each one of the social providers that you're allowing entrance from to your survey, I'm going to be listing the full set of profile data here for you to target on. Right now, you'll see it's pretty limited for Facebook and LinkedIn and Google, and that's because you need to set up a business account with them to actually get the full profiles in. So I'm just getting the basic stuff now. So I won't be able to see your LinkedIn history until I set that up, but I won't do that until I've actually formalized the business. But it's going to work the same way. So for right now with Facebook, basic social auth, you'll get the minimum age, the age, and their gender. So you can target on that right now. GitHub is a little bit more giving and what they provide. Um, for right now, I'll be able to let you qualify them on them having a verified email address, minimum account of their age, their following, those kind of things. One thing that seems to be present in a lot of these social providers is the email address and whether or not that email has been verified. So that's going to be a way to connect your different social auths. As you can see, Google has something similar, LinkedIn has something similar. So if you've come in here and taken surveys with your different social auth providers as your login, I'll still be able to dedupe on that common email address. Face liveness is something I'll demo. One of the worries in market research today is bots coming in and taking surveys. So this is a way to, if the respondent is willing to have a quick video taken of them, prove that they're a live person, or at least you'll have a high degree of confidence that it is a live person. And since an image is being taken, I could do direct facial analysis on it to get estimated age and gender. And I wouldn't target based on that, but it is nice information to include at the end with your survey results to have a AI estimated age and gender, to be able to see the image of the person who took the survey if they were willing to do this. I think it helps a researcher decide whether or not that respondent was a good one or not. Different third-party quality checks you want to have. Google reCAPTCHA is the one I'll support initially, but there's different services out there like Sentry, RepData, Device Forensic, Imperium. I can add support for any one of those. Standard screeners. One of the problems with market research today is the screening process. People tend to have the same screening questions asked over and over and over again, and those screening answers they give aren't useful over time. They're used to get you into that one next survey. And then some people track them, but one of the problems with market research today is they can't really be tracked because most of the sample coming in is just represented by a single use ID. So you can't really use that to attach your screener answers to because those go away. IP address, digital fingerprints, those aren't useful for that. But if you're requiring people to log in with their social auth, now you have a real ID that you could attach these screener answers to. And I think you can take advantage of that in a couple ways. So all of these screener answers as part of defining the answers you'll accept. You also define how recent you need their last answer to be. So let's say there's 100 surveys on the system. They all ask for gender. If they all want that screener to have been answered in the past hour, they could all specify that. And now that respondent is going to have to answer that question over and over and over again. They answer it once, and they're good for all those 100 surveys. You could always say you always want an answer if you really need it to have answered, but you'll have options here. And so another benefit to this, in addition to the respondent not having to answer the same question over and over again and lose interest, is I get to save every answer they've ever had. And that's a great quality indicator. If their gender is changing too often, I might not trust that respondent. Another fault with screeners, at least in the older early routers, was every person using it would kind of define their own screening criteria. So 20 companies using a system with 20 different gender questions, they're only tracking their answers within that space. I want to have one screener question for each screener type: household income, languages spoken, ethnicity, gender. And it's understood that not everybody's going to want to have the same answers. So what's going to be available is the full set of all possible answers: two-spirit for gender, prefer to self-describe, all those things. But it's understood that maybe you're a religious fundamentalist. There's only two genders in your mind, maybe two-spirit as well. These answers are going to be restricted so that in this example, only male and female are going to show up as options, but the same screener question, all the data collected from it is going to be usable over all time. Hopefully I explained that clearly. One thing that's available to me is the device type that you're using. So are you on a desktop, mobile, smart TV, tablet? Who makes that device? What operating system are you on? If it's mobile, what operating system on? What browser are you using if that's useful to you? Also, what's available is I haven't built out the UI for this yet, but all these different types of IP-based locations. So real quick, I'll show you every time there's a network request to Hype. So every time somebody saves a page of answers, every time someone saves a screener answer, every time someone logs in, all this data is available and tracked. So if somebody's country changed within a few seconds, that's suspect. That'll be recorded. That'll go into the AI models, and that's something that I'll use to note against not just the social login, but also all the IP addresses, all the other social logins that have used that IP address, have had that digital fingerprint, a whole set of sprawling type of dedupe to filter out baddies. So lots of information collected here as far as screener answers changing, location changing. Tracked with that is who logged in, the IP address, their JA4 fingerprint, which is a better fingerprint than the digital fingerprints used in market research today. And I'm going to be able to see through all the analytics stuff who's bad, save that info, not just their IP address, but all the other markers for them. All right, let's go back to creating a survey quickly. Let me just put a text box here. Another thing I always thought, I think I mentioned this, is just being limited to one question per page. Maybe you want more than one question per page. Maybe you want like a form where you're asking lots of questions. Right. Very free form. I know this is kind of cryptic for everybody to use, but your survey programmers on staff would probably find this easier than what they're currently stuck with. And yeah, I think it's easy. So let's look at a survey that I actually programmed, and that's the weed survey. Weed preferences. So a couple things I want to show here. Tailwind CSS is built into Hype. So up here, it's pretty messy. Still in progress, but Tailwind CSS, if you have web developers on staff, they're familiar with it. And what it does is make it very easy to place the elements on a page in specific places, control colors, textures, all kinds of things. You can see this checkbox right here is pulsing. That's because of this pulse thing. Maybe we want it to spin as well. There's all different kinds of things you could build into this. The size of them. The colors. How margins are set. All kinds of stuff. So here I'm making use of the discrete choice. So let me go in and take this survey so you can see the survey taking experience. So I'll come in. Right now I'm not filtering out surveys that have already been taken because I'm in test mode and the time and points are still static. But, oh wait, let me show you quick. One thing that is being tracked now is the number of impressions, starts, and completes for these surveys. Whoops, I'm sorry, let me go back. Maybe you want to stop showing your survey after some number of impressions. Maybe you want to bump up the number of points you're awarding to people. If it's been shown to a lot of people, but you've had very few takers, you may not be paying people enough. But anyways, let's take this survey. So here, when I created this survey, I had this checkbox defaulted to true, but you could turn it off if you don't want your data going into the machine, but I'm fine with it. How do you prefer to consume cannabis? So, I mean, personally, old school, I like the flower. Um, Select all the strains that you've had. So, let's see, Acapulco Gold, Berry Punch, yeah, probably, pick as many as you want. Um, what qualities are most important to you in a strain of weed? Um, so dankness, it's got to be sticky. Terpene combination's important. In your own words, please explain what weed means to you. Tell us all about it. So what I'll show you in the next video on the analytics is every text answer, whether it's a text box or one of these open ends, has AI-based text analysis applied to it. And that analysis is much richer than the old school, just counting the number of words, checking the words against the dirty word dictionary. It'll show all the different parts of speech you're using, sentiment analysis, all that stuff. But this is a very deep question. Thank you very much.